Welcome to The Real with Joseph Labman. I am Joseph Labman. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Real. Taking time out of your day to come watch this episode. I really appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe for me. I'd really appreciate that as well. That's the best way you can support this channel and help me grow my content and grow this channel to where I'd like it to be. Everybody hit the like button for me on the way in on this video today. That also helps promote this video more in the algorithms, helps grow this channel more as well. Please share this content. I would really appreciate that. My guests would as well. If you would please share this episode with someone you know that maybe is interested in the topic we're talking about today. Please leave a comment below as well. We'd love to hear your guys' feedback. You can interact with myself and the guest on the panel and the live chat as well. Whatever we're talking about, just leave a comment there in the live chat. Pop in and say hello. We'll put it on the screen for you. And yeah, without further ado, let's get to the show. Welcome back to The Real with Joseph Labman. I am Joseph Labman. Hope you guys are having a great week. Yeah, like I said there, if you're new here, please subscribe for me. Everybody hit the like button for me on the way in. It's the best way you can support this channel, like I said, and help your boy out fight the algorithms and promote my content more. So I'd really appreciate that. Yeah, interesting show today. Really, and I'm interested by this show today because I think it really sits home with me, I guess you could say, because I could relate to some of it, what I'll be talking about today. And it's something that's been on my heart. But before I get into that, though, make sure, if you haven't already, subscribe, like I said, but also be ready for this upcoming football season. We have a whole panel of guys that we're coming and doing lives up this fall, post Browns post game reaction. We're going to be doing Ohio State stuff. We're going to be doing possibly even high school football stuff. I put a new banner out the other day with all the guys on it, kind of like what you'll be looking forward to this fall. The guys, main contributors of the show, you'll see that'll be up here talking football. We'll have some other special guests that'll pop in as well here and there. But yeah, make sure you check that out and please subscribe to our show. But to take a break from sports today on The Real, because the last month or two we've talked a lot of sports on this show, and I kind of want to take a break. And like I said, and I'm really interested in doing this show today and just kind of curious to what your guys' reaction to it will be. Because like I said, I can relate to a lot of this myself and some of my own personal battles as a Christian and as somebody who's gone through anxiety, and kind of where I'll be going with this today. And so where I got this from was, I've kind of thought about doing something like this for a while. Some of the people I watch, some who will be featured on the show today. But I was watching one of my good friends in life and a great mentor of mine, and a true man of God. And it's a man by the name of Mike Snodgrass. And Mike is the associate pastor at Cross Point Church in Canton, Ohio. And Mike was preaching a sermon on Sunday, and I was able to check it out yesterday on Monday. And in the sermon, Mike's a phenomenal preacher, number one. I've listened to him preach many times before. Him and we've had many one-on-one conversations, and he's really helped me a lot in my journey with anxiety and just my faith and overall just my life in general. And we still check in with each other here and then today. If I ever need something, I can hit up Mike. But he was giving a great sermon. He was talking about the story of Mephibosheth. Let me get that right. In 2 Samuel, Mephibosheth, right? And so I'm gonna give some backstory on what the story of Mephibosheth, if I could say that, Mephibosheth. Try saying that 5 times. So bear with me today for the tongue twister of a name, but I'm gonna do my best. And so the story of Mephibosheth is briefly appearing in 2 Samuel. Mephibosheth is the disabled son of Jonathan, the son of Saul. So Mephibosheth he's a disabled person, and he's the son of Jonathan. Jonathan is the son of Saul. Right, I'm kind of going to paraphrase through this article a little bit too to make it a little speed it up a little bit for you guys. But I want to give you guys more context of what this is, what the story is, in case you don't know. Jonathan was King David's best friend and defended him when Saul wanted to kill him. And so remember, so you see there, Jonathan is King David's best friend, right? But Jonathan's also the son of Saul who wanted to kill King David. So upon his death in battle, King David made a vow that he would care for the needs of Jonathan's family in thanks for his friendship, which is what happens. It goes on in the story. That's what happened. And so what is Mephibosheth's story? And you can see right here. Eventually, Jonathan and Saul do die, like you see there, right here. When Jonathan and his father died in the battle of Mount Gobao, I believe I said that right. Excuse me if I didn't. Gobao. David wanted to show his kindness to their family for his friendship with Jonathan. He felt led to bless others because of all the blessings of battle conquest that God has provided him. And it later goes on to say here David had requested to help a servant of Ziba from the house of Saul for assistance in finding a relative of Jonathan and Saul to help, to which he was told about Mephibosheth. Now, Mephibosheth had a difficult childhood early on. With the news of his father and grandfather's passing, young Mephibosheth was taken away from his home in Gobea by his nurse, probably to avoid retaliation from enemies. Unfortunately, in the process of escaping, he was accidentally thrown to the ground and his feet were permanently maimed. In that time, people with severe injuries and disabilities weren't proudly shown or welcomed, especially if they were of royalty. So Mephibosheth was probably hidden away to ensure his safety from David, because it was considered better not to recognize disabilities connected to well-known authority figures. David made it a point to meet with Mephibosheth at once and sent for him to be taken from where he was staying. Mephibosheth went from the house of Makar, the son of Amiel, in Lodabar, and was brought to David. And so, as you can see here in this story, David was committed to keeping his vow, right? When he told Jonathan that if something happens to you, if you die in battle, I will take care of your son or your family out of my love and just thanks of your friendship, because Jonathan was loyal to David. Jonathan stuck by David. Jonathan helped David, even though Jonathan's father was sought out to kill David, right? Saul sought out to kill David, but Jonathan still remained loyal to David and showed him love, compassion, and kindness, right? And what a true friend is. And so David wanted to return that same favor, and wanted to return that and return that favor in return, if that makes sense. See, the Mephibosheth name thing's got me twisted up my set. So, like I said, bear with me today. It's a tongue twister of a name, but stay with me. But he wanted to return the favor, right? In Jonathan's honor, because Jonathan had passed and died in battle, lost his life in battle. And so David sought after Mephibosheth. But Mephibosheth, like you see there, like I said there, was being held away from David because the people didn't really know I don't think people really knew the relationship of David and Jonathan. And for what it seems like, and that they assumed because of Saul, how Saul, didn't like King David, wanted to kill him, and basically was an enemy of Saul. Um, they thought, well, we need to keep, Jonathan is Saul's son. We need to keep the grandson away from King David. But King David had that relationship with Jonathan, who was Mephibosheth's son, or Mephibosheth's father, excuse me. And so, as you can see here, it goes on to say, when the king and newly former enemy of your grandfather requests your presence before him, chances are it's not for anything good. You can guess what Mephibosheth must have been feeling: fear. He had already gone through so much in his life due to his childhood injury and losing his father and grandfather at a young age. So Mephibosheth had a rough life, right? He had a rough life, lost both of his grandfather and his father. He went from living really good as the son of the king to all of a sudden they're dead. He gets injured. He's disabled now, right? He's got a rough life. He had everything taken away from him, really. He was at the top and then he went to the bottom, right? Everything was taken from him. And so when King David goes to bring him to him, basically rescuing him, but Mephibosheth doesn't realize that David's actually rescuing him, and doing an act of kindness because of who his father was to David. Mephibosheth, like you said there, must have been feeling fear. And so it goes on. So he wasn't hopeful for this meeting ahead. Yet the complete opposite happened. Mephibosheth fell in front of David and surrendered in humility, right? So when he was brought in front of David, Mephibosheth bowed down and got on his knees and his hands and knees and just opened out and surrendered and said, okay. But the king advised him not to fear, that he was not only to be given the land Saul owned, his grandfather, but that he was to be permanent guest at David's table. This was all to honor David's friendship with Jonathan. And so, and you can see here, He didn't end there, as David also requested that Ziba and his sons care for the newly restored land given back to Mephibosheth. While Mephibosheth would continue to eat bread at David's table, this probably included Mephibosheth's own son, Micah, as well. To say Mephibosheth was shocked is to be an understatement, but he was probably curious about why David would show such favor to not only a former enemy's son, but one who couldn't give anything back to him due to his disability. He even referred to himself as a dead dog, right? So now you see Mephibosheth, he had a defeated mentality. He had a pity party. I'm a dead dog. I'm disabled. Nobody's ever going to like me. Nobody's going to give me a chance, right? I have nothing in my life. My life's been terrible. I'm never going to have the things I wanted. So I continue. When questioning the king on why he would look so fondly upon him, this was about how the relationship continued, with Mephibosheth living well in Jerusalem at the king's table until somehow later David requested his presence after being far away for a while. Mephibosheth was homely and dirty at their meeting, having not cared for himself since David left. When David asked why Mephibosheth didn't come, Mephibosheth instead launched into an accusation about his servant Ziba, who said Mephibosheth had slandered David's name in his absence. Ziba advised David that Mephibosheth was seeking to restore his grandfather's land back to himself, so that he would become king of the land instead of David. This was while David was in hiding from his enemies in Jerusalem. David had given Ziba Mephibosheth's land for revealing this truth to him, but this created animosity between Ziba and Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth lost favor with David as well. All that is recorded of Mephibosheth in the Bible after this incident, that David saved him again from being executed by the Gibeonites who wanted to kill everyone connected to Saul. And so, as you can see here, not only once did David show grace and mercy to Mephibosheth, but twice. You can see there on the second part. And as Mephibosheth lost favor with David as well. But it continues. All that is recorded of Mephibosheth in the Bible after this incident is that David saved him again from being executed by the Gibeonites who wanted to kill everyone connected to Saul. So the Gibeonites wanted to kill Mephibosheth because he was the grandson of Saul, right? But once again, even when Mephibosheth kind of got sour with David, the relationship got sour, right? So David goes and saves him, brings him into the kingdom, right? Lets him sit at the table, right? Shows him love and grace and mercy. And as time goes on, Mephibosheth and their relationship sours, like you read there, right? And Ziba gets involved, right? And the Ziba and Mephibosheth have kind of a disagreement, and that kind of got in the middle between David and Mephibosheth's relationship. But even then, as Mephibosheth was sour with David, right, with King David, who had shown so much mercy and compassion to him, David still went out, right, and saved him from being executed by the Gibeonites. And it's an interesting story because the reason why I bring this up today is because Mike, I thought when he shared this yesterday in his sermon, so that was to give backstory of the story of 2 Samuel and Mephibosheth, right? But I thought Mike did a really good job, a great job Sunday, not only explaining the story, but also where he ended with it. And at the end of the story, Mike talked about how you notice there when he brought Mephibosheth in, David did. He talked about how they went to the throne room, right? They sat at the table, right? That was the highest place, right? But then outside of that, though, was Mike talks about in the sermon, there was the throne room, there was Egypt, which was exile, which was slavery. So on one end there's the throne room, right? On the other end there's Egypt, which is exile. In the middle is slavery. Or no, excuse me, the end in Egypt, exile, is slavery. But then there's the middle, right? 1 foot in the throne room, 1 foot in exile, right? And it's kind of like the second part of that story there, kind of like what Mephibosheth was. He was in the throne room, but then he kind of started to trend more back in the middle. Then he started to trend more back into exile, which is kind of like his version, of slavery. But David once again came in and saved him and brought him back to the throne room. And if that makes sense. And so I'm going to play some clips from Mike's sermon here where he kind of breaks it down pretty well. And just you'll see where I'm going to go with this today. What my main purpose of this today is, you see why did I label this how our society is creating more anxiety problems through the spiritual realm, right? This is kind of where I'm getting at today. And so let me go to my first clip here. Let me cue it up here. Mike's sermon. I'll put this down in the description below if you want to see this full sermon from Mike. I highly recommend watching it. The great church down there at Cross Point, and I'm looking to go down there soon in person myself. But I've enjoyed listening to them, and especially listening to Mike. And so here's where the first part of the sermon is I want to play. Give me 1 second. Facebook has a little it's not like YouTube where I can just click right on where I want to cue it. This is a little different. And so all right, so here we go. So here's the first sermon, or first part of the sermon I want to share from Mike. I think I have it right. Okay. So actually basically where I just left off. Right here. All right, finally. Sorry about that. All right, so let's get this queued up here. So this is the first part of Mike, our first part of the sermon I want to show from Mike's sermon, if that makes sense. First part I have here from the sermon I want to show you guys. And this is where Mike was talking about basically what I just said about how there was, there's the throne room and there's the exile on one end, right? Then there's the middle ground. So here's the first part of Mike's sermon that I want to share with you guys first.
You see, Mephibosheth was covered in the grace of King David. You and I, in our crippledness, are covered. Our lameness, our spiritual blindness, our disease is covered. And I don't sit there as Mephibosheth. I don't sit there as Mike the sinner, Mike the fallen. I sit there being covered by the grace of God. And I can sit with the King because I'm a co-heir and a child of God. I can sit at the table and be covered. My lameness is covered. My sickness is covered. I'm not defined. You're not defined by that this morning. It's our choice. It is your choice and it is my choice. Mephibosheth had to be carried because of his crippledness. But what did he show in the throne? Humility. It is our choice to be carried into the throne room or to remain in exile. It's your and I's choice. You have an opportunity because there's about 3 different kinds of people here this morning, probably. 1, you live in exile. You live in exile. You are disconnected from God. You don't know Jesus. Second person, you live in the throne room and you eat at his table. And I pray that's you this morning. There's a third person as well. There's someone right in the middle that wrestles with it a little bit. That much like the Israelites when they were coming out of slavery, that were complaining and griping. And you know what they wanted? They wanted to go back to slavery. There's 3 kinds of people here this morning. Exiled, throne room and table, and contemplating slavery again. I want to talk to that person first. I want to talk to the person that...
And so you can see there how Mike demonstrates the 3 different rooms, right? And so I love what Mike did there. I thought he did a great job demonstrating that. And it goes to what my point is today with this show, and kind of what my bigger message of the show is today, about how our society is creating more anxiety problems through the spiritual realm. Right. And he talks about there how, and I should have mentioned this, how Mephibosheth, because he was disabled, he was carried into the room. He was carried into the throne room, right? And he got down his knees and he just surrendered, like it said when I showed there in the story in the article. Um, and how he showed humility, right? And so listening to that, Mike say that again, it really demonstrates how we as people, oftentimes, we're in the throne room, right? We have an opportunity to be in the throne room. We're in the throne, maybe as a Christian, if you're a believer, all right, or if you're somebody who um, maybe just gave your life to Christ, or you're somebody that's interested in God, right? You're in the throne room. Then you have people though that are in the middle, who are kind of on both sides, right? They're kind of like, I want some of God, but then I kind of don't want some of God. I'd rather be, which is the end point, which is exile, which is slavery, which is Egypt. Like you said, they're the Israelites. The Israelites were being brought out of slavery, and they were complaining and they were griping, and they wanted to go back to Egypt, to slavery, right? And so that's how a lot of people are today. And I think that why I named the show today, why I said how our society is creating more anxiety problems through the spiritual realm, is because if you look at what our society is really promoting nowadays, a lot of what it's promoting is leading us, it's taking people who are in the throne room and leading them back to exile, right? And it's something we all struggle with as believers, if you're a believer or not a believer. It's something we all struggle with, right? And if you're somebody who doesn't believe in God, that's your choice between you and God. That's your God-given right of choice. But I would say believe in something or you'll fall for anything. And so there's a lot of people right now who are in that realm who don't believe in anything and they're just living in exile. They may have everything, right? But do they really? And the next clip here that Mike says in this sermon that I thought was phenomenal, he really kind of mentions that. So here's Mike now in the next clip. Um, do you really have everything?
Yeah, you can. Because we are co-heirs with Christ. He has made us through that. God demonstrates, secondly, he demonstrates his generosity, plight to prosperity. You and I have nothing. We don't. We don't have anything. You and I may have that physical, right? Money or possessions, right? All of us are different in that way, but that's not what we're talking about. You and I have nothing. We have nothing. And what Christ does is he gives us his inheritance because of his love for us. He gives us from plight to prosperity. You see, we live in that spiritual lameness. But when we come to Christ, we have that full inheritance. Philippians 4:19.
And so, yeah, do we have anything? No, we have nothing, like Mike said there. And I completely agree with Mike 1000%, obviously. We have nothing, right? You can have all the money, have all the fame in the world, have all the materialism in the world, but without Christ, you have nothing, right? Without that spiritual component, you have nothing. And so, how are we creating more anxiety problems through the spiritual realm? Our society, how is our society creating more spiritual problems through the spiritual realms? Because they're attacking people spiritually. And when you attack people spiritually, you create more of those anxiety problems. You create more of those mental health problems, right? You create more of those physical problems. It starts with the spiritual. And it's like my man Dennis Simsek, the anxiety guy, said recently on his show, and a clip I saw. A lot of anxiety problems are spiritual problems. If you really think about it, it's faith, right? Faith over fear. That's why you always hear that, faith over fear, um, surrendering, letting go, having grace upon yourself, right? It's things that Mike and I talked about privately, things that I used to struggle with a lot, especially when Mike and I started really getting to know each other. And I had to grow more of my faith, right? And so everything I'm saying today is things I've had to go through myself. I'm sure Mike's had to go through, experience, and grow in his faith and his walk with God, just like I have as well. But there's a lot of what our society is doing right now is they're taking people out of the throne room, especially Christians who are in the throne room, right, metaphorically, and they're bringing them back to the middle. And now when they're getting to that middle ground, a lot of them are going back to exile, into slavery. And why is that happening? And I think a lot of why it's happening is because of what's being celebrated nowadays in society. And if you look at what's being celebrated in our society nowadays, you go back to my episode I did. Remember I talked about this back in, it was a few months back when the P Diddy, P Diddy, the rapper, music guy, came out. The video came out of him beating on. You can see there in the picture, him in the hotel floor in the hotel hallway. Excuse me, beating down on Cassie's then girlfriend, and he's beating her up pretty bad, dragging her around the hallway, and just horrible video, right? And I went on my show that day and I said how our society is creating a lot of P Diddy's. If you look at a lot of what P Diddy embodied, right? A lot of what he embodied was materialism, sex, money, fame, right? All the things that are very worldly, and that the things that our society really pushes more of today, more than ever. And he in turn became a monster. You can see there in that photo. He's somebody who's out of control. And now you hear some of the other pretty serious accusations about him that have come out, right? And that everything he once had is just thrown away. And it kind of goes back to like what Mike said. Yeah, you can have all that in the world, but if you don't have what's most important, you have nothing. And you look at somebody like P. Diddy now, he did his little apology video after this came out. And you could just tell, somebody that just seems very, um, I don't know. I didn't really buy into it, but I'm sure P. Diddy is somebody who's probably trembling right now in the spirit because he probably doesn't have any real foundation there, right? And he probably is experiencing a lot. I bet he has a lot of sleepless nights due to his fear and anxieties about a lot of things because he created it. But again, he was somebody at a very young age in his life who was attacked spiritually by the devil, and P. Diddy stayed in exile. And he was given everything, but he never made it. He never truly made it to the throne room. And not only is he enslaved, not only has he been living in slavery. Slavery was just easy for P. Diddy, right? It was convenient. He had all the money, women, everybody kissed his rear end, right? Everything was easy for him. But now that's gone. So now he's not only even staying in slavery, but he's, you know, doesn't have that convenience anymore. Although I'm sure he still has a ton of money. Nothing's really happened to him yet. But my point of the show today is not P. Diddy. But remember I said that though on that show. I said how our society is creating a lot of P. Diddy's and how a lot of people are idolizing the same things P. Diddy idolized at a young age and what he became. And you see what he became there on the screen. Not a great person, somebody that people should obviously not model their life after. But if you look at what's happened now in our society, right? Let's move on now to Hawk to a girl. And so I know some people are probably shaking their head right now. I don't really care if people get mad at me for talking about this. Whatever. I don't really care. I know some people are gonna say, Joseph, she's just innocent. She's just a young girl running around. Who are you? You're 24. You probably do whatever. I'm not trying to pick on this girl at all, but the fact that this girl got so much fame for not actually number one. Let me do this first. If you haven't seen, you don't know who Hawk to a girl is. Hawk to a girl is some little country bumpkin. I think she's 21 years old, I believe, or something in her early 20s, kind of like me. We're around the same age. Lives down in Tennessee. Was in Nashville one night, kind of liquored up with a friend, whatever, going out having a good time. And these two guys here, I don't know who they are. They go around and ask people strange questions that really 10, 20 years ago, if you went around and asked people these questions, you probably would get your another man, a real male would actually stomp these dudes out probably in the street for asking their females questions like this. But we live in a different society now that, like I said, we wonder why we have the problems we have, which is what I'm getting at today. So here is the original video of Hawk Tuah. If you haven't seen it already, I'm sure most people have. So here's the original video of this is why she's famous. Let me put this on the big screen. This is why this girl is famous because she said this right here.
What's one move in bed that makes a man go crazy every time?
Oh, you gotta give him that hawk to and spit on that thing. You get me?
So that's why that girl's famous, because she told everybody how she likes to pleasure a man in bed. Oh, it gets worse though. But now she's going around. Well, it may not be worse or something, but for her, now she's she's being brought out in concerts. She's hanging out with Shaq, right? Everybody's trying to get on her podcast shows, trying to interview her. She's become like this celebrity all overnight, and they're treating her like she's like the next, uh, Kim Kardashian, really, because she said that. So this girl is being she she gets, because she said something stupid and immature online, and it went viral. Now all of a sudden everybody's got to, she's like, we got to, what's Hawk Tuah girl up to? I need to follow her. I need to see. She's like what society, this is what our kids need to be modeled after, right? And I see a lot of parents, especially like older adults, and middle-aged adults, really like promoting this girl a lot and following her and trying to like keep up with everything she's doing, right? Everybody needs to know what she's doing. She's being brought to concerts. She's walked through the concerts and stuff. You see videos, and everybody's like swarming her and like trying to get a picture with her and all this stuff. Why is that? And if you really think about what she said, she talked about just giving a man pleasure in bed. And it's kind of like going back to my point about P. Diddy, right? What did P. Diddy represent? Right? P. Diddy represented a lot of some of those same qualities that she described there, right? He was somebody who was obsessed with those things. And look what he became as time went down the road. He got more powerful, and the more power he got, the more dangerous he became, and the more harm he did to other people. And so I just find it interesting to me, why do these people like Hawk Tuah girl, why do they get like promoted so aggressively by the algorithms? It's just so like, people are obsessed with this, right? And it says like in this article right here, this is on the Cut. I thought this was very interesting, and I actually agree with what they said here. Are people being normal about her? No, people are actually being super weird about her, which is unfortunately is to be expected when you're a cute girl who goes mega viral, especially for answering a question about sex. The internet is filled with freaks and perverts. They all have become obsessed with Welch. That's her name, Haley Welch, and her newly coined phrase. A representative from, now listen to this right here. A representative for Pornhub told TMZ that the website was projected $4.7 million, maybe not $1 million, projected 4.7 million searches for the term Hawk Tuah by Tuesday. You have to imagine it would be easier to search for spitting, right? And so, as you can see here in this article here, how they described it perfectly about how people's just obsession with this girl, it's all because it's like it says there, especially it's because she talked about sex, right? And look at how people reacted after that, going on Pornhub and typing in Hawk Tuah. 4.7 million searches by that Tuesday. And it just goes to show you how our society has pumped through social media, through entertainment, through everything, has really just pumped a lot of this really sexualized, perverted society we have down. Just this very like, we're focused on all the wrong things, right? We focus on marriage based on if we find somebody attractive or they keep us entertained in the bedroom. That's how people are getting married now. Especially there's even Christians now who are marrying just based off of that, and they openly admit it. Not what not how God intended it to be. What the real important and true meaning of marriage is. People are chasing a lot of material now, a lot of money, and a lot of all these things that P. Diddy represented, right? And none of us are perfect at all, right? I have my battles. I've heard Mike and preaching his sermon, and a couple of sermons before and Mike and I have talked privately. Mike's had his battles and growth, like everybody else, right? People on this show that I've had on my show have talked about our battles, right? And how we've overcame a lot of things and how we still battle through things, right? We all have flesh within us. We all have things we are working through. Nobody's perfect. This isn't up here just condemning this girl or, saying, how dare you people or any of that. That's not what I'm doing today. This is not a condemning whatever thing. This is just simply calling out, number one, if you really pay attention to what's being promoted. And then number two, look how people are just obsessed with the wrong things nowadays. And how they, like it says there in that article, how just people are freaking out over this girl. But also number three is just, we wonder why we have so many, because a lot of if you're new to my show, a lot of this channel is dedicated to mental health, from my past experiences of getting over anxiety and panic disorder, and then I've shared a lot of my wisdom on the show. We wonder why we have a lot of these anxiety problems, these mental health problems, and a lot of it starts with the spiritual, because people spiritually are being pulled away from that, right? Being pulled out of the throne room, brought back into the middle, or people that are in the middle that are maybe looking at the throne room are being pulled. Everybody's being pulled into exile. Everyone's being pulled into exile. And it's so easy. It's so cheap, because exile in our world nowadays is, you can be like this girl, right? You can be famous overnight for saying something that's really not something that should be promoted, if we're being honest. Yeah, it's a silly joke, but it shouldn't be. It's not something. Would you want your kids to really be going around saying that? Imagine how many little kids are going around right now saying her little phrase. Is that normal? Last I checked, it wasn't normal. If I would have said that growing up, yeah, no, that's not normal. You know, it's just crazy though how many people and Christians especially, are being dragged spiritually back into exile, like Mike said. And when you get in that, we wonder why. We wonder why we have so many anxiety problems, or we have so many mental health problems today, because a lot of it is spiritual. And when you lose touch spiritually, you panic. Because you have no identity anymore. You have no conscience. You have no. And I say this because I talk to so many people who I love dearly, and people I care about, that have kind of in that middle ground, right? And they have more anxiety than anybody I know. They have no peace in their life because they have no faith. They have no discernment. They have no. They don't know what their outcome's going to be for the rest. You know what I mean? At least if you're a true believer of God, yeah, you don't know what your outcome's going to be tomorrow. You don't know what the future holds, but you know you're going internally, which is most important. And also, if you really study your Bible and know what God says, a lot of being a Christian is walking by faith, trusting in what He says, that He will be there for us. He provide a way. He provide all of our needs, right? He will help us through times, right? He will always be there. He's always there with us. He's there to protect us, right? God has many promises and to provide a great life for us. Doesn't mean it's always easy. We have challenges, but if you really understand God and grow more in your faith and why He allows challenges, right? These are things I had to learn in my faith. And really what helped me get over my anxiety a lot and get a grip of my anxiety, which people like Mike helped me with, was understanding that, right? And understanding that we don't have to be, I think a lot of what the problem is too, we have so many perfectionists nowadays. That was me. I was a bad perfectionist, right? I was a really bad perfectionist. I was somebody in that middle ground who was, my perfectionism and the pressure I put on myself a lot of times caused me to go into exile, kind of lean into exile, right? And it wasn't until I started working with Mike, and I started working, and Mike started helping me out, and I started talking to other people and growing more of my faith 3 years ago, and I slowed down, and I really started to realize, like, okay, I see it now. And something Mike used to always tell me all the time, and I mentioned on the show before, is, Joe, have grace upon yourself, right? The kind of grace David showed on Mephibosheth is what we need to show on ourselves sometimes, right? Because I think one of the tools society uses is with pressure, right? We think pressure is pressure of doing the wrong things, right? Being pressure, like this girl right here, Hawk Tua girl, she's probably she's probably feeling a lot of pressure right now to maintain this, basically a character that she's from a joke, right? She has to maintain this Hawk Tua. Nobody knows her real name. Her name's Hawk Tua. That's her name. And when people know what that means, it's like, that's what you're known for. is that really something to be proud of? Probably not. But again, she feels the pressure to maintain this image now, to maintain this character. And this is what she's going to be the rest of her life until she says she's had enough. But what will it take for her to have enough? Right? But what will she become? And she's now being dragged towards she was in that little middle ground, but now she's being dragged towards exile. And I don't mean this to pick on her, but it's like my man Jason said here. Jason said it perfectly right here. I'm gonna play this here from my man Jason.
New York.
Oh yeah.
Do you think you see yourself like starting your own type of like show or podcast, or are you just going to be like an internet personality?
I think we're gonna do like a show, and then we're just gonna be like on a bunch of podcasts and everything else in between.
Cool. So kind of just figuring out as you go.
Oh yeah, there's more to come. Don't worry. There's more to come.
Like, she has the whole team.
In this new society that we've created, where men have been feminized, where men don't want responsibility for leadership, where men don't want responsibility for setting a proper tone, men are going to make it rain on Haktua. She's going out to LA and she's going to make money as long as she's willing to get on board with that leftist Hollywood plan. And she's already given off all the bat signals. And she's about to have money rained on her. She's 21. I don't blame her. In this society, she could be the next Kim Kardashian.
You're going to go to LA? Or-
Out to LA.
I love what Jason said there at the end, especially. She could be the next Kim Kardashian now. We all know how Kim Kardashian got famous, right? From a tape. And so this is what we celebrated. But again, like Jason said, how can we be mad at her? Because this is the society we've created. Especially as men, we've fallen. Men have fallen. Men of God have fallen. Men of God, especially, were in that middle ground and have allowed the things of the exile to pull them away from walking into the throne room. Right? And so, like he said, that she's going to be the next Kim Kardashian. She thinks this is normal because she's getting all this money and fame and admiration now. And as she's going to go on, you're going to start seeing this girl doing some probably nasty things online. Which is, if I'm not saying she will, but I've had to guess, she's probably going to have an OnlyFans page here real soon. She's probably going to be doing all these crazy things. And she's going to make all this money from it, right? And she used to be some innocent girl from the middle of nowhere who was a teacher, right? Probably had a normal life, maybe had a normal family background. And she says her family's okay with this, which that's a whole nother thing. But which is pretty sad. But she's bracing that lifestyle now. Like Jay said, that Hollywood lifestyle. This is what you get now. And she's not the only one. Right? She's not the only one. If you guys have paid attention to the news recently, I never heard of this guy really. Sketch. Right? Sketch is a internet was he a Twitch streamer? He's like a Madden Twitch streamer, right? And he's a Houston Texans fan, I believe, because I've seen him with CJ Stroud and Tank Dell and all those guys. He's been with them a lot, and the NFL's really like promoted this guy, brought him out to the draft to select the Texans draft pick. And I don't really know who he is. I've never really paid attention to him. I'm not into the Twitch gaming stream stuff. I know who some guys are, but Mr. Sketch here, he's been brought out recently. I noticed him more in the last like year, especially year or two, especially. He's been promoted as like this very famous figure now. Everybody celebrates him. People in the football world celebrate him, right? He's been kind of entertaining. You've seen him with girls and celebrities and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden the other day, stuff came out about Sketch, right? And I thought I had the clip, but basically Sketch 2 years ago was found in an OnlyFans video as kind of like a gay OnlyFans model, or somebody in the video. He was allegedly involved in some gay sex and OnlyFans. And so he goes on a video on his Twitch stream the other day, because all this came out, all these allegations, right? And everybody's slamming him online and saying, we never knew about this. And so Sketch goes on his platform and says it was him in the thing, and that he regrets doing it, and that he never wanted anybody to find this out 2 years ago, and now all of a sudden he's had a weight lifted off his shoulders, and he's sorry, and that he's changed. And so I'm reading this, I'm like, well, number one, okay, if the kid did something, well, he's 25, but if Sketch was involved in this stuff 2 years ago, right, now it's been found. He always knew it existed because he did it, and so now he was hoping people didn't find it, like he said out of his mouth. So then I found this in the New York Post article, right? Quotes right there on my screen. And then he says, he admits to it, right? Then he says, all right, I regret that, changed my life. Okay, people make sin and make mistakes. I hope when I saw this at first, I hope he turned his life around, right? I hope he has turned his life around. But Sketch then, at the end of his thing, makes a joke. And I'm seeing if I can pull it up here. I thought I had it queued up. So he goes on. He admits that he's the one in the OnlyFans video, and that he regrets it and all this stuff, and that he's moved on. And then he talks about too how when all this stuff came out that he was sorry that the last like 40 hours after this stuff came out, that he was feeling kind of like down, and that some people helped him out, and he was in a low spot or whatever. I don't know if I can find this. I'm trying to find the part where he goes out of this video, but basically I'll just give a reference. Remember when Bill Clinton, President Bill Clinton, had the stuff with the female, and he said, I did not have relations with that woman. Sketch basically, makes a joke, and he goes, I did not have sexual relations with that man. Then he basically says, well, I did, kind of. And he just like walks out of the room, right? He basically admits it. Because it was found. He admitted it in the video. And then he just walks out of the room and just that was the end of the video. Kind of making a joke out of it. Right? And so, and you can see right here. And it's funny, listen to what remember what Jason just said in that video. How Hawk Tua could be the next Kim Kardashian. Look what this says right here. Sketch went on to say that he thought he might quit if the news ever came out, but joked he would now take inspiration from Kim Kardashian on how to handle a sex tape scandal. So Sketch, instead of he was in the middle ground for a minute, right? I've changed, I regret that, hope to move on, but then I'm gonna go back into exile. I'm just, what are we doing? It's like Jason said, what do we do? This is what we've created in our society. It's like I said, we're creating a bunch of P. Diddy's. So Hawk Tua girl, she's on her way now down that lane, far away from the throne room, heading down her lane towards profiting off of this, then Sketch, yeah, I'm sorry, but I'm looking to profit off of this as well. Basically what he's telling you. How did Kim Kardashian become famous, make all her money? It's like he said there, he's taking inspiration from her because he knows I can turn this into a positive for me, for my pocketbooks, for my fame, right? And people are going to sell. And there's people online and celebrate defending them and all this today. All these other, it's an absolute joke. It's a joke. But again, this is what we created in our society. Sketch, Hawk Tua girl, and P. Diddy. This is what we're creating. And we wonder why people have anxiety problems. And it's because, and people are having not just mental problems, but just problems in general. It's because they're being attacked spiritually. And society is using people like these three people here. And Hawk Tua girl and Sketch aren't on the same level as I won't put them in the same realm as P. Diddy or some of his accusations, but they keep going down that road. They'll be heading in that same direction, just keeping it 100, maybe in different ways, but creating people like P. Diddy, it doesn't have to be just one way. Just saying, but if you know what I mean. But these people are being used. This is what society is telling you. You can have it all. Just be like these people. And I see a lot of Christians, like Mike said, who are in that throne room. Well, Mike was referring more to the middle ground people, but hey, there's a lot of people in the middle, right, who are looking at the people in the throne room. That's what I mean to say here. There's a lot of people in the middle who are looking to us in the throne room. And I say us as believers. But us as believers are now people who are joining them in the middle ground. And we're all being led towards exile, which is hell. And we wonder why there's so many anxiety, how mental health is at an all-time high, problems are at an all-time high, just emotional problems, it's physical. It's all because we're being attacked in the spiritual. And until people really understand that and realize that and admit that, and we as Christians especially start standing up, having more courage, like Jason said, especially men being men again, things aren't going to change. They're only going to get worse. We're going to have more P. Diddy's down the road. We're going to start off with more Hawk Tuas and more sketches. Because they say, "What's up, brother?" And, she's going to, you know what. And people say, "Oh, just that's just jokes. You lighten up. Have some fun, will you?" Well, listen, I'm somebody who, at a young age, at 15 years old, had everything taken from me, not by anybody's fault. And when I listen to Mephibosheth's story, I have some similarities to him in my own life. Not everything. I wasn't disabled. I'm able to go out and bike every day, 5 miles or 10 miles, and I'm a very healthy person. I have a great family in life. I have my father. I did lose my grandfather, but it just in general, if you really get understand what I'm getting at here. And everybody knows and your story as well. And there's a lot of people on the show. Listen to Dennis Simsek's story. I'm sure Mike. I'm looking forward to have Mike on the show one day. I'm sure Mike's got a great story. We've all been at some point in our lives, like Mephibosheth was, down, crippled, either spiritually, mentally, emotionally, maybe physically, even for you. For me, it was my anxiety was more my physical, but a lot of it was mental, emotionally, and it crippled me spiritually, right? And I was at a point in my life where I had things taken from me. But what I've noticed in my life in the last 2 to 3 years, especially within the last 2 years, is surrender. And how when you surrender to God, just how Mephibosheth surrendered to David, right? He had so much fear. He had so much he could have been angry about a lot of things, right? And I've been there. There's a lot of things I was angry about. Things I'm still healing from today. It's been a long process for me. And I'm just using myself as an example. And I say this, guys, because there's some times where I can allow my anger, my emotions I'm in that middle ground, right? As soon as I hear that, as soon as I get a thought or I start getting down about something, I have a choice. I'm in the middle ground. In that moment, I can either allow myself to surrender and enter into God's throne room, enter in that throne room of peace, right? Or I can allow my emotions and my anxiety to take me down a path towards exile emotionally, if that makes sense, right? Where my anxiety is now out of control, having panic attacks, I can't sleep at night, right? I'm fearful of the future now. I'm fearful about everything. Everything's being magnified to what it really isn't. I'm not paying attention to truth anymore, right? And I've been that person many times. That's a battle I've had to work through. But what I've learned more in the last 2 years, especially, is just surrender, having grace upon myself, and understanding how Christ forgave us on that cross, and the grace and the mercy he showed on that cross, that sacrifice he gave on the cross. You're somebody who doesn't believe in God. Like I said, imagine, but like I said earlier, that's your choice between you and God. But if you don't believe in anything, you'll fall for anything. And when you fall for anything, you end up in exile. Not just spiritually, but mentally, emotionally, physically. We all go through the same tough times together in different ways. We all go through tough times. But you notice people that always make it out on top and in peace, or make it through. A lot of times it's people who are in that throne room, right? Or people who are in the middle ground that go into the throne room, right? A lot of people that struggle with tough times, that constantly can't think about people in your life. We all know who I'm talking. I don't have to say it to you guys. You guys can think about people in your life, people you see, right? A lot of people that constantly struggle, constantly can't get out, constantly can't get over the hump and move on with their life. There are people that are in that middle ground, but they lean back into exile, like Mike said. And so, but again, our society, though, is pushing us towards exile. So it's up to you to make the choice. How can I go from exile to the throne room? Right? If you're in the middle ground, how can I go from the middle to the throne room? And so I got a couple more clips here from Mike I'm going to play. That kind of goes with that. And I'm not going to really add too much to this. I'm just going to play these clips kind of go in order. So just follow along with them and stay with me. It's towards the end, though. And so let me find 143 here. So this clip here kind of goes along like what I just said. And so if you're somebody who's in that middle ground right now, right, you're wondering, what must I do? Right? What do I do? Right? What do I do? Where do I go from here? Well, here's what Mike mentions here that I think goes along perfectly with that. And we put this on the full screen for you guys.
Paul says, no, wait. We're here. So then what's the jailer say? What must I do to be saved? What must I do to be saved? That is the question that mankind has to wrestle with, whether you ask it or not. Whether you ask it or not, that is the question that you and I and everyone who has ever lived has to ask, what must I do to be saved? And this is what Paul says in response. Believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, and you and your household will be saved. That's what he says. So what else? How do I sit at the table? How do I come into relationship with this free gift that God has given me? If I don't have to earn it, if I don't have to work for it, what do I do? Scripture is crystal clear. 1 John 1:9 simply says it this way. If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us. Faithful and just to forgive us. And to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. Death to life. Cripple to freedom. Freedom. Plight to prosperity.
And so, love what Mike said there, obviously. And so, how God could take you from death to life, right? Now, the name of the sermon was actually from death to life, right? And that's what Mike was getting at yesterday. And so, you saw Mephibosheth crippled, right? He went from death to life, right? And that was David showed a lot of the same qualities that God shows to us constantly, right? And so, like I said, if you're somebody in that middle ground, how do I be saved? Well, that's how you get to the throne room, right? But you also have to make more choices, because just because you give your life to Christ, you give your life to God, doesn't mean just because you're in that throne room. Remember, like Mephibosheth, he was in the throne room, but then he started to face the middle, right? The exile was going back through the middle to the throne room, trying to get his attention, right? It's almost like there was a side screen there. There was a front screen, which was the throne room. Then there was that side screen, that voice, right? The devil, let's say. Or maybe if you have somebody with anxiety, it's that voice, right? You know what the truth is. You're trying to have a good day, but there's that nagging voice in the side of you that just kept saying, you're going to die, or you need to worry about this. You need to fear this. Right? There's always that back voice, right? You see a lot of people, that's like, kind of like that middle area, that gray area. And so you look at people like Hawk Tua, people like Sketch, people like P. Diddy. They're people that really look to that side screen, and they've jumped into it. Once you jump into that side screen in exile, it's hard for you to hear the voice of God. And that's where, like I said earlier, you don't find, especially somebody dealing with anxiety or just problems, it's hard for you to find that true peace and true freedom that you're looking for, right? And so you have to make this decision as well. And this Mike goes on to say this here as well. right here. Actually, kind of where I just picked where I left off. So here's Mike going on in the sermon.
To David. You remember? We read that, right? How did he respond? He bowed to King David. He said, your servant. And so when we come to Christ, that is the posture that you and I need to have. We need to come in humility and submission. Why? Because you cannot say that he is my Lord and then go do your own thing. You ever thought about that? He's either your Lord or he is not your Lord. Mephibosheth had humility. He had submissiveness. You and I come to Christ when we confess Christ as our Lord and our Savior.
And so think about what he just said there. I'm going to go back to Sketch now. Not to pick on him, but you look at Sketch little video he made the other day or whenever it was, talk about the incident that came out. It wasn't a lot of humility, right? They make a joke like that at the end of it. And then, like it said there, Sketch went on to say that he might quit, the news account, but joked that he would take inspiration from Kim Kardashian and on how to handle a sex scandal or sex tape scandal, right? He joked about it, but when you watch the video, you're kind of like, you could kind of see him lean in that direction. Same thing with Hawk Tuah girl, right? She could have not have caved into all this. She could have just said, you know what, that was me in the video that said that. I was a little liquored up. Yes, it's something maybe kind of funny for some people, but I'm just going to go on my life now and back to my normal life. No, she's going into the character now. But why is society promoting these characters is what I'm saying. The Sketch guy was around for 2 years, and everybody's promoting like he was the greatest thing in the football world, especially like he's the greatest, funniest thing since sliced bread. But then something comes out now, and now you're starting to see the truth about who these people are, and it's kind of like, oh, right. And so, but again, it's like Mike said there, you can't you can't say, yeah, I did this, but then I want to go keep doing my own thing. You know what I mean? Keep doing the things that I know is not good for me. Again, that's the middle ground. That's that middle area like Mike talked about. And that middle area is where a lot of people, like I said earlier, most people I know that struggle the most with the deep, bad, severe anxiety are in that middle area. And so you have to make the choice. Is he the Lord of your life, like Mike said, or is he not? And it's beyond spirituals. Spiritual is most important, but even if you're somebody with anxiety, like I had to ask, am I going to continue to believe these irrational fears? Or am I going to trust what the doctor said and what people like Mike told me many times and what my parents, people, am I going to trust in God, my faith? Am I going to trust that I don't control everything, right? Life doesn't always go the way we want it to. Sometimes life can be hard sometimes, but are we going to cry about it? Are we going to, kind of roll over? Doesn't mean we don't need community or people. Sometimes we need to let things out. That's very normal. But we don't live in that space. We don't allow ourselves to stay stuck in that space. You have to have some sense of courage and push and have courage. And God will bring people and things in your life that will take you from where you are and he'll take you to where he wants you to be. And I'm as somebody that knows my life, especially in the last 2 years, he's done that for me. And I've been an example of that in my life. And I know Mike knows that as well, more personal level, because him and I have worked more personally. But I've had that happen in my own life. And so, again, you have to make a choice. Is he the Lord of your life? And if you're somebody out there that's really struggling, man, you look at what's going on in this world right now. If you're somebody that's in that middle area, you have to ask yourself this. I'm ending on this. I'll let Mike take it away at the end here. You have to ask yourself this. Is a lot of what we're seeing out being promoted nowadays, being jammed down our throats, that the world and our society is saying is normal, is it really normal? Is it really healthy? Is it really leading me to, am I really finding peace? Is it really helping calm my anxiety? Is it really helping me heal parts of my life has it really helped me move forward in my life from things in my past? Because you have to really ask yourself the question. I think a lot of you really sat and thought about it. It's probably no. It's not. If anything, it's leading you to exile. You're somebody that's out there wondering, man, I'm trying to do good. I do good for a couple of days, but I keep finding myself in the same exile. I keep finding myself back in Egypt, right? I see the throne room. I step in the throne room. I like it. I'm interested in it. That's truly where you want to be, most likely. But I keep finding myself back in exile. Well, then you need to realize, like Mike said, you have to understand, how do I be saved, which Mike explained, but also, you might have to sacrifice certain things. And I think that's one thing our society has forgotten. We've replaced sacrifice with greed. That's all we see now. It's just greed, and just people who they're caving into they're allowing those negative emotions and feelings and things that they're allowing it to lead them. Right. I'm really curious to see what the background of this Hawk Tuah girl's Haley Welch is her name. I'll call her Haley. I'm curious to see what Haley's upbringing and background was. I'd just be curious to wonder. Same thing with Sketch. Right. Why do people all of a sudden, why is it so easy for them just to cave in and let go? But yeah, again, you have to ask yourself, is a lot of what you're seeing nowadays, is it really leading you towards what's being promoted, what's constantly jammed down our throats? People wonder why they're always in and out of relationships, why they're, I mean, I see so many people my age who are constantly in and out of relationships, right? And just had kids with people even, and right? And now those kids who were little infants or becoming young children now, this is the environment they have to grow up in now. All because people are allowing society to control their minds, if we really think about it. People are acting out in the flesh and not the spirit, but they're just they're in that middle ground. They're allowing the temptations of the world to lead them into exile. They think they're doing, a lot of people, like I said, look around and really ask yourself, is this really leading me? Because a lot of people you see that look like they have it all, like Mike said, they have the money, they have this, they have that. People, even normal people who maybe have it all, who look like they have it all, maybe have a family, right? Maybe, look like they have all these cool lifestyle. They go to all these things. They do all these things. They own all these things. They have all this money now. They're the CEOs of these companies or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Just use an example. A lot of those people are actually living in exile internally and spiritually. And so at the end of the day, who's really living in exile? The person, let's say somebody who maybe doesn't have it all. Maybe there's somebody who's had to really fight for a lot of their things and really earn a lot of their things, right? Doesn't really have maybe a giant friend group or a big social media, or maybe doesn't have social media, right? Doesn't have all the money or all that. But they're so committed to the Lord, and they're so committed to helping others, and people respect them. They're in the throne room. But those other people, they're in exile. But they have all the things the world says is good. So who really is in the right place? That's what you got to ask yourself if you're in that middle area. And so that's all I got for you guys today. Like, subscribe, share all that good stuff. I'm going to let Mike take it out from here. And Brother Mike, take it away.
Church, could we agree together? Could we say this out loud together? Would you join me as we support our brothers and sisters who are coming to Christ, who are choosing to live in the throne room of God? Because they are Mephibosheths just like you and I. Could we say this together? Would you join me in saying, Father God, Lord Jesus, Holy Spirit, Jesus, would you forgive me of my sins? I confess you as Lord and Savior. I ask you to come into my heart, to save me from my sins, so that I can sit at your table and receive your inheritance. I choose to live in you, Jesus, from this day forward. Amen.